Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here taking a look at Bandit Point, which is a VR shooter. I'm not going to call it a first-person shooter because it feels weird calling it that. What would you call it? A virtual reality shooter or a VRS? Because by default, the position of your viewpoint is in first person, so yeah, we'll call it a VRS. So, Bandit Point is a VRS with one interesting gimmick. You can swap into the bodies of any of your enemies at any time. So you can just point at them, hold the left trigger, and you'll jump into their body. And you can use this to go through a series of relatively linear, very simple, and otherwise not particularly impressive levels, where you need to shoot a bunch of robots following the objectives and orders of your pirate captain in order to steal something or just survive. And it adds to this a little bit by letting you swap into multiple different kinds of robots, whether it be the regular machine gun robot, the archer robot with an electric stun arrow, the revolver robot with what's basically a stun prod, which will stun the enemies. He's also got a 6-shot revolver. You've got the knight, who's got a lance that he can use to run people down. And you've got the missile launcher, who's arguably the most powerful and one you'll never not want to be, but it's kind of let down by how weak he is. And this game has a very precise tactic of jumping into an enemy and then getting yourself really highly damaged, then jumping into another enemy and then immediately shooting them back. It can be a bit disorienting. The first time you jump into a new enemy and realize you've been completely turned around and you're facing the exact opposite direction. But once you get used to it and basically just develop the reflex of pointing forward and shooting rapidly, you'll get it down pretty quick. Unfortunately, none of them just feel that great to play, especially the archer. The archer is a bit stiff and kind of hard to get under control. The machine gun is kind of hard to aim, especially if you're playing this on virtual desktop like I was, because it seems to be looking for orientations from like a Vive remote. You know how it's basically a television remote? Yeah, it's just in shape, not in function, but it expects you to like turn one of the controllers upside down in a really unnatural angle in order to actually aim the machine gun properly. It's quite difficult to do on the lamb. Archery is a bit stiff because it's really hard to actually get the arrow to get on there correctly. I've played a lot of games with archery in VR, and this one is probably the hardest one I've had to play that's not completely unplayable. It's kind of unfortunate. The Magnum is a little rough because you're supposed to do like this whipping motion in order to get your stun prod to do like this close range electronic attack, but for some reason I could just never get it to go off consistently, and the Magnum's kind of hard to aim, and the motion gestures for it as well are a bit rough. The Knight has just too much health, so whenever you get into him, you'll easily be able to destroy 6 or 7 robots. Meanwhile, if you're in just any other type of robot, it'll be 2 or 3 before you need to realistically swap. And then you've got the missile guy, who's got this weird, like, pull chains from above your head in order to fire off missiles thing going on. He's not that bad in the grand scheme of things, especially since he's so powerful, but it can be hard to aim the missiles, and he's also quite weak. And the problem is that this game just doesn't seem to take much advantage of the fact that you can do the swapping, outside of making it so that you have to like go across a gap by possessing someone, whether it be vertical or horizontal, in order to get to the next part of the level. But other than that, it really just doesn't do much to impress you with the switching mechanic. It doesn't make you think, I need to swap into this guy first so I can take this guy out, and then I can take out this other guy to swap into this guy in order to actually clear this difficult situation. No, it kind of just lets you swap into whatever you want and shoot whatever you want. And as a result, there's very little strategy to it. There's very little you need to worry about in the way of thinking about what you're doing. You just go in guns blazing, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, because I'm sure there's a couple more ways you could realistically use this. Presentation-wise, it's pretty good. It's got some, it's not great writing and voice acting, but it's got this kooky sense of humor to it that's half just ridiculous humor about the situation you're in, and half surprisingly smart wordplay. But I'll take it. I enjoyed it as far through as I went, and the voice of your captain is pretty entertaining to listen to. even though he doesn't say anything particularly memorable as you're going along. And it is a decent looking game. I do appreciate the work that they put into the models, but all of the environments, thanks to the fact that they don't have much in the way of clutter objects, all feel a bit flat, even though they've got some decent texture work and stuff and what have you going on. And the game's about 3 hours long, but if I'm being honest with you, I only really made it an hour in. I was playing a level, and I'd been through the same area 3 times, and I was just slowly killing people trying to find my way forward. And then enemies stopped spawning, and it turned out I needed an electric enemy in order to actually progress. So I was kind of stuck, because I was the knight at the time. And it was at that point I just decided, yeah, I'm just going to put this down. I'm just going to let this go. Because it's just not really that much fun at the end of the day. The mechanic doesn't wear out its welcome or anything like that of swapping between robot bodies, but it just doesn't lend itself to particularly great gameplay, and it doesn't feel very polished either. It doesn't have very much in the way of side objectives or just planning you need to do when you're about to go and fight any particular set of robots. And outside of just a couple of relatively easy puzzles, it's just, eh. I don't get much out of it, if I'm being honest. It's a relatively cheap game, so I don't feel that, I don't feel, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say ripped off, because it's not an awful game. It's not something that you would get a refund for immediately. But yeah, after an hour, I just didn't really care. Pretty average, wouldn't recommend on the face of it. Maybe if it goes on deep discount. But it's already pretty cheap, so if it goes like 50% off, it'll be like $5. And it's probably not that bad for that, but any more and I'd probably start shaking my head. I'm going to shut up and let you watch a little more gameplay. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.
Aye, thou snob sure didn't take kindly to our little raiding trip. Get ready, they be coming again. for now. Way to go, matey.